Colombia's primaries and legislative elections ended in big surprises, ended with huge surprises, with center-right-wing candidate Fico Gutierrez coming up as the big winner of this political event. Representing the coalition Equipo por Colombia, which is essentially a coalition of different right-wing and center-right-wing parties in Colombia, Gutierrez was the absolute winner after getting nearly 3 million votes, which is way more than the different polls predicted before this political event, before this electoral event. So, on the other hand, radical left-wing candidate Gustavo Petro won the primaries of his coalition Pacto Histórico, which is a coalition of extreme left-wing and left-wing parties of Colombia, reaching almost 5 million votes. Getting to this point, it is important to remember that the big loser of this electoral event was essentially Sergio Fajardo, who, despite winning the primaries of the coalition Centro Esperanza, his numbers were actually quite weak. In fact, the person that ended in the second place of the Pacto Histórico, which was Francia Márquez, ended with way more votes than Sergio Fajardo, which ended in the first place of this coalition, the coalition Centro Esperanza, which is a coalition of center and center left-wing parties in Colombia. So, on the legislative elections, Colombia's right wing achieved a pretty important victory, since it managed to get 70 seats in the Senate, while the left-wing parties only managed to reach 37. This is quite important because this only means that if extreme left-wing candidate Gustavo Petro ends up winning the presidential election, which is the outcome that the vast majority of polls predict, he will have an opposition parliament, an opposition legislative branch. And in case that a right-wing leader wins this presidential election, this will only mean that he will also have the Senate. So, getting to this point and watching all the numbers, we can say that Fico Gutierrez could be the main contender to Gustavo Petro, and in fact, he could actually win the presidential election if he makes the proper alliances, which seems quite possible. It's not impossible. We need to remember that the person that showed to have more votes is definitely Petro. He has more votes than Fico Gutierrez. However, the different coalitions and the different parties of Colombia, the vast majority of them, have been expressing over the last few months a lot of disagreements with the radical left-wing candidate. So it is quite possible that Fico Gutierrez could absorb the votes of these parties and these coalitions. On the other hand, it is important to remember that the candidate of the presidency's party, which was Oscar Iván Zuluaga in the Centro Democrático, he decided essentially to quit from his presidential campaign. He decided to quit from this campaign, and once he did this, he immediately expressed his support for Fico Gutierrez. So this could be actually quite remarkable, because we need to remember that this party, Centro Democrático, is essentially the one of former President Álvaro Uribe, who has been the most important political figure over the last few years here in Colombia. So everything could happen, and we will be informing you over the next few days and the next few weeks. Reporting from Medellin, Colombia, Luis Orozco, Newsweek.